Now, I just wanted to finish, David, by asking you on a domestic point, because you've touched on throughout your remarks on this broadcast um, freedom of speech as being an important issue, and we resolve our disputes by enlightened debate rather than by force of arms domestically if we can. We discovered on Thursday that Lucy Connelly has been released from prison, having served 9 months for an off-colour tweet. What do you make of the Connolly case and what that tells us about the state of freedom of speech in Britain? However off-colour you might find her remarks, she was incarcerated for 9 months for expressing them.
What do I think of the Lucy Connelly case, Mark? I think that the Lucy Connelly case is more interesting, obviously, from the point of view of poor Lucy Connelly, the fact that she was sent to jail. I mean, let's put to one side what I regard as the absolutely outrageous use of law to limit speech. This is the thing that seems to me to be the fundamental issue. Even going back to the 16th century, one of the accusations against Henry VIII and Thomas Cromwell were that they'd made mere words treason. And even in the 16th century, that was regarded as deplorable. The question with Connolly, of course, and the whole debate is how far her words were intended to produce action. In other words, that clear notion, again, the formulation of the American judge on this issue of freedom of speech, that crying fire in a crowded theatre, where, of course, the words lead directly to possibly fatal action, that's the test. But what I think is more interesting about the Connolly case is the use of actual procedure. How was she brought to plead guilty, as opposed to the Labour councillor going like that? And shouldn't we cut the throats of the Nazis, who pleads not guilty? How Connolly was brought to persuaded to plead guilty was by it is perfectly clear, a deliberate handling of the processes of arrest and the processes of granting bail and remand. That she was effectively threatened into pleading guilty. She was remanded in custody, as interestingly enough, Starmer, in that extraordinary statement that he gave at the time of the Southport riots, you will be remanded, you will be found guilty. This is, again, going back to the 16th century, that famous note of Thomas Cromwell in his Remembrances, to try the Abbot of Glastonbury and to find him guilty, which does rather prejudice the outcome of the trial. But what's striking is the use of actual procedure to compel a specific plea, and also the use of procedure actually to punish. And this seems to me to be one of the most dangerous things that's emerging now with the police. You're actually using procedure as a means of either coercion or punishment. She was told that if she didn't plead guilty, she would, of course, she would have a jury trial, but she'd be kept in jail for at least 12 months or longer, whilst actually waiting for a trial. There's been other cases that have come up recently, again, thank God, with their consequences cut off by the Free Speech Union. There is that firefighter called Mr. Moss in Staffordshire, who found himself being dismissed by the Staffordshire firefighting force and remonstrating about it online. And he finds at 7 o'clock in the morning Plod turning up at his door. He finds Plod, so that's using 7 o'clock. He was lucky he opened the door, otherwise it would have been kicked in. You're using the machinery of arrest as an instrument of coercion. Secondly, they seize his phone, his computer, his laptop, on the grounds, of course, of gathering evidence. But we live our lives online. If you seize all this, you can't actually function in today's world. You can't run a bank account. You can do virtually nothing. So they use the gathering of evidence as intimidation. And then what they do, they use the machinery of remand and bail. And the bail conditions, I don't know whether you saw it, the bail conditions were he must not tell anybody he'd been arrested. Now, and indeed, thanks to the Free Speech Union and a brilliant counsel who argued the case, it was indeed ruled to be unbelievable and actually Orwellian. But this is what the Connolly case raises. It is actually, and Starmer, I think, begins it. It is the use of the machinery of law enforcement, setting aside any guilty or not guilty verdict, as a machinery of coercion. And do you know what? We used to have this in the 18th century. In the 18th century, there was a device for making people plead guilty or not guilty. Because if you refused to plead, if you knew you were guilty, you were a highwayman, for example, and you refused to plead guilty, you couldn't be condemned at English law, which meant that in those days, if you were condemned for a felony, you not simply were hanged, all your property was confiscated. So you would leave your dependents penniless, at the mercy of a very untender state. So highwaymen, refused to plead. Do you know how we made them plead? We pressed them to death. They were stripped in the yard of the Old Bailey, tied down, spread-eagled out. A heavy plank was placed on their chests, and weights were piled on it until either they pleaded or they were crushed to death. Now, we're using procedure now with human rights. We shall not have cruel and unusual punishment and all the rest of it. We're using legal procedure to do exactly this. And this again, Mark, is the profound paradox of all of this. These are the good-intentioned people. These are the liberals. These are the adults in the room. These are the believers in moral purity. And they have corrupted everything. They've corrupted nationhood, they've corrupted politics, they've corrupted religion, cultivate law, everything. By their fruits ye shall know them.
David, it's been a wonderful discussion as ever. You've brilliantly outlined the problems. We've got a lot of fixing and restoration to do. It's been a real honour to have the chance to talk to you. I look forward to our future discussions to try and put in place a strategy to render all this right. Thanks very much for having me on your programme. If you are watching and you're not subscribed to the channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be informed of all future broadcasts. And if you enjoyed the broadcast, please give it a thumbs up and a like, and perhaps leave a comment below. David, thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure to join you. Stay well. Look forward to seeing you soon.
A pleasure, Mark. Thank you again.